This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description to support now.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
When the energy is high and the music is right, pushing past your limits becomes that much easier. Take a reggaeton run or strength class on the Peloton tread, and you'll quickly see why these are the workouts you've been searching for. Every day brings new challenges from expert coaches who train and speak the same language as you do. Level up your workouts with Peloton Tread. Find your push, find your power. Peloton. Visit onepeloton.com.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
This is Writers on Film, the only podcast dedicated to books on cinema. Hello everybody and welcome to Writers on Film. My name is John Blaisdell. I am a writer and film critic, and today I'm delighted to be talking to Maureen Foster, who is the author of Under the Skin, The Alien in the Mirror, one of the only books that has really dealt with Jonathan Glazer in a comprehensive and serious way, and yet at the same time is a really interesting and entertaining read about the making of the film and the whole process. So I'm really delighted to have you here with me, Maureen.
Thank you so much, and thank you for thinking the book is entertaining. That's definitely a high priority.
You're absolutely right. There are so many books out there which are very informative, but forget sometimes that we actually have to enjoy reading them as well.
That's the key. That's the key. Thank you.
When I came across this book, one of the things that I was looking for books to read about Jonathan Glazer, and your book really stood out because he hasn't made that many films, so he hasn't been treated. I don't know what do you think? What do you think his reputation is as of now?
Well, this film, this latest one, has changed everything in terms of reputation, exposure, how seriously he's being taken. And prior to that, as you said, he had very few films. I mean, if you compare him to other filmmakers who in a 20-year period would have 10 films or 5 or 8, and he, prior to Zone of Interest, had 3. And it's because he does exhaustive preparation. And I remember the article in The Guardian, one of the things I read in preparing for the book, the title was, How Did This Masterpiece Take a Decade? Because it was 10 years from his last film, Birth, until Under the Skin came out. It was a shorter distance between Sexy Beast and Birth, only 4 years, but between Birth and Under the Skin and Zone of Interest, a full decade. And it's because that's the kind of filmmaker he is. And that's the answer to your question. That's the kind of filmmaker he is. And don't expect him to come out with another film in 2 years. It's not going to happen. But, when you see his films, I think it's all there on the screen. I think all of that work is there on the screen.
In the beginning of your book, when you talk about how you came across the film itself, Under the Skin, what was your sort of general view of Jonathan Glazer? Had you already seen Sexy Beast, or what was your opinion of him prior to Under the Skin?
I had seen Sexy Beast. It was such a long time ago. I remember really enjoying it. Fabulously charismatic movie. But I think, as I talk about in the intro to the book, it was that poster that captivated me. I mean, I hadn't thought about Jonathan Glazer in years, I don't think, but that Neil Kellerhouse poster just hit me on so many levels, mainly because it gets you thinking, what is this film? Is this a love story? Is this a science fiction movie, or is it a fantasy movie? There seem to be stars in the background. Is it about the cosmos? I mean, it's a great, and and that was outside my local movie theater, my local Laemmle Theater, for about 2 months before the film opened. And I thought, I've got to see this. And then, of course, after I went to see it, I went back again and again. It was my local theater. And then I started taking notes. And, I always wanted to. I started out as a film critic many ages ago. And, criticism is short, as you know, it's brief, it's to the point. But I always thought it would be so nice to go very deeply into just one film, the way you do in a page instead in a whole book. And after I saw this film twice, I said to myself, this is that film. This is the one. And then I just kept going and started writing and started taking notes, evolved from there,
So you were like in search for it. You were the iceberg looking for the Titanic.
Well, kind of passively. Over the years, I see a film I love and I think, what I want to write about this one. And there have been a couple, I won't name them. There are a couple I thought about, but this one, because there is so much going on, I thought this is the one. I will have the journey, the adventure of really diving down into this film. And there's going to be a lot here. And that was the one. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I think what you've just said is about to happen, or is happening at the moment with Zone of Interest. It's getting a lot of people suddenly interested in Jonathan Glazer who might not have been interested before. No. I think that happened to me when I saw Under the Skin. Because when I saw Under the Skin, I'm not even sure if I'd seen Birth or if I'd seen Sexy Beast, or if I sort of considered them particularly, even if I had seen them, if I'd thought about them as, because I remember Sexy Beast came out in the midst of a kind of glut of London-based gangster films. But I saw and Birth came out when there were quite a few Nicole Kidman films around, and yes, she was having a bit of a run. Eyes Wide Shut had just come out, I think. And then, but when I saw Under the Skin at Venice at the film festival, and it just blew me away. It was just so unbelievable. I just immediately knew it was the best film in the festival. It was right up there. It should have taken home a big prize. And it made me go back and watch all of his other films with a new eye. This guy's a master. This guy needs, attention. So I can totally relate to your seeing in the film enough substance to justify an entire book, but also the wish to spend that much time. There aren't that many films that you would want to devote that much time to, but this is definitely one of them.
It is. And just a quick word before I go on about the Venice Film Festival, since you were there. When I interviewed the film's editor, Paul Watts, he told this funny story about the Venice Film Festival and how he was sitting there with John and with the producer, and they started hearing some booing from one side of the theater, and they were going, oh, and then they started hearing some cheering from another side. And then it was booing, more cheering, more booing, more cheering. And Jonathan was, he wasn't prepared. And then the producer said, hey, John, this is what you wanted, this controversy, and this is what you probably expected. And that is that film. People have very strong reactions to it one way or another. And Now, before I just digressed to Venice, the book itself. So the book, I was really planning to write a kind of monograph like the BFI books, the little ones, which I love. And so I was prepared to do that sort of format. And I started writing, and I had about 80 or 90 pages, which would have been the right length. But they were at the time, I think I did pitch it to them. They, for various reasons, not interested. And of course, Glazer was not so you can see why they said, not that many people saw this film. We don't know about this, maybe later. They said, call us in 5 years. So anyway, I went on to look for a publisher. And the publisher I found said, okay, well, we want this book to be, a full-length book, not just a little monograph. And so from there, it became even more exciting for me because I knew I would have to have not just the BFI type of an overview, but I'd have to do all that research into the making of the film and do some more things too that excited me. And then I had the book that I ended up with, which is 3 sections. So the book evolved in part because of the response I had to my proposal. And it all turned out so great because it wasn't what I initially thought it would be. I thought it would be my favorite BFI is the birds. The Camille Paglia, the birds.
I've got that. I've got that one. I've got the Thin Red Line one. I've got a few. There used to be a section in the library where I went to university in Liverpool. There'd just be a row of them, and I used to use them as like a break from my studying. I would go off and pick one out and read it in like an hour and then put it back. And
yes, when I lived in Berkeley, there was a store like that had a whole shelf of them, and I began collecting them. My other favorite is the Eyes Wide Shut, the Michael Cheyenne Eyes Wide Shut. That's a great one too.
I've read his. He did another one on the Thin Red Line. Still the BFI, still the same series, but he's a great writer. Really interesting. Really.
Yes, wonderful. Loved it.
You said earlier that you wrote some criticism in the past. What was your approach to how did you end up here? How was your?
Okay, so my very first journalism, my very first writing, professional writing was reviews and interviews. So I wrote for what at that time was called Andy Warhol's Interview. They later changed it to Interview magazine, which I'm sure you know. But in those days, yes, I was doing short film reviews. I interviewed filmmakers, and I moved from New York to Los Angeles at that time. But I realized I didn't really like film criticism. I'm not really into picking things apart, criticize. It's not the negative side of it was not my thing. It didn't appeal to me. And so I got out of that. I did some more journalism, and then I started writing novels. But I think that's another reason, going back to the idea I wanted to do a book, is that it wouldn't be a review. It would be something that was really positive. I mean, there is analysis, there is a kind of critique, but it would be more of an homage to the movie rather than, the kinds of things I did as a film critic. So that's another thing that attracted me to doing the book.
That sounds so exciting as well, that you are going from New York and the Interview magazine into Los Angeles and novel writing. It sounds like quite a journey. It
was. And fiction is something I started in college and wanted to pursue that as well. But the Warhol gig was a kind of a nice bridge, to come to LA. And I interviewed at that time. The magazine is interested in movie stars from the history, as you know, and I interviewed Joan Blondell and Agnes Moorehead and people who were around in those days that Interview loved to publish articles about them. So it was fun job.
Golden age.
Yes, very much so.
I wanted to know as well, I mean, this is stuff that you talk about in the book as well, but our listeners probably don't. So the Michael Faber novel, which the film is based on, that's the thing about this book. You give a really good description of all of Glazer's career up until this point as well. So I found myself going back and rewatching Sexy Beast and rewatching Birth. Both films have grown enormously in my estimation.
Yes.
Birth, I think, is perhaps the one that is least known. I think Sexy Beast has sort of entered into the culture because of Ben Kingsley's performance. Ray Winston is, of course, wonderful. Birth, I think seems to be more difficult to actually get to see. It's not sort of out there as much.
Birth wasn't as well received. I think there was controversy at the time over the child and actor and the circumstance of him. You know, as you recall, there's a scene where the child's in the bathtub or she's in the bathtub. I don't know, bathtub scene. People were a little unnerved by that. I think that got too much publicity at the expense of what a beautiful piece of art the movie is. And also people didn't know what to make of it. And here's the thing about Glazer. He reinvents every genre. So whatever he makes, it's going to be of that genre, but like not anything in that genre you've seen before. He did it with Sexy Beast.
Totally.
It's a heist film, but it's a love story. It's an intense love story. And then Birth, is it a paranormal film or not? And he did a completely different spin. Under the Skin, it's science fiction, but it's a journey of an individual, I'll call her a person, but a being, and it becomes her journey. It's very personal. It doesn't have that much to do with science fiction once you're in the story. And same thing with Zone of Interest. Yeah. So many Holocaust films out there, but he did something that's never been done. He took the perspective of this family living next door, not the perspective of Nazi Germany or the victims of the Holocaust. He did something completely new. And that's what he does. And I'm sure he'll do it again.
Gad Dove talking about his girlfriend, his wife, and saying, I need you like a rose needs rain. It's just like, and it's like, he's Ray Winston. He's the Borstal boy from Scum. He's this, hard man, rock hard and all the rest of it. And yet he's just so wonderful. And opposing him is Gandhi, for crying out loud.
I know, the casting's so brilliant. And, John, if you haven't watched it, there's a DVD about Glazer's films up until before Under the Skin, actually, and about his whole career. And there's some very funny videos and things in there about how he cast Sexy Beast and how he cast his. If you watch it, you will laugh. It's just, I forgot the actor's name now, but it's someone that I'm sure you're familiar with, who he keeps turning up in Glazer's life and giving him advice on who to cast. You got to watch it. It's hilarious. You'll love it.
I also went back because you described them. So I sort of went on YouTube and dug them out, the music videos and some of the art videos that he's done, some of the commercials that he's done, are just incredible. And we're used to film directors, Alan Parker, Ridley Scott, Tony Scott, David Fincher, lots of film directors have come from music videos and have come from commercial video work and commercials generally. But Glazer, even when he does commercials, seems to do, he doesn't have hundreds and hundreds out there. He's got like 10 or 15 out there, which are all really amazing.
Yeah, that surfer commercial is, I've watched it so many times. It's captivating. The way they did that, the way they overlaid, it was inspired by a painting of horses. Then they overlaid the images, and it's just a work of art. And that's how he approaches commercials or music videos or anything. And a lot of Walter Campbell, who was in advertising and wrote the script for Under the Skin, he's one of several people who worked with Glazer back in those days, and continued to work with him when he moved to features. And then also Glazer, as you know, goes back and forth. He still does commercials, and he all along, because you need to do that, you need to have the income. And he's got the wonderful, even the Prada campaign he has now with Scarlett Johansson. I love. I think it's captivating. So
yeah, he's just got that way. Everything that he does is just different. And there's an amazing Sony campaign he does where he's blowing up paint in a Glasgow housing estate, which you describe as well in your book.
Yes, that's a lot of the crew that later worked on Under the Skin, and it's Glasgow. So when they got to shoot Under the Skin in Glasgow, they said, "Oh, here we are back again. Last time we blew up a building, and now we're shooting this film." And there was some talk about possibly shooting the film elsewhere among the producers, but Glazer was set on shooting it in Glasgow. I think it was a magnificent choice, so that's where it's set.
I remember one thing, I think we can move on to Under the Skin now. I remember one thing about watching it in Venice. Some of the critics around me, as we left the screening, I saw it in the press screening in the morning, and they were, the non-English critics were really baffled because they couldn't understand the Scottish. So They were like, why didn't it have subtitles? We needed subtitles for the English, because you usually have, subtitles for the language where you are, the festival language, and that's it, or the English subtitles for foreign films, but not in this case. It was an English film, so they didn't have they only had the Italian subtitles.
That's right. It's funny. And it does provide some of the moments of levity in the film, which are welcome, when they speak and you can't really understand them, and it's funny. So, and the audience laughs. Every screening I went to of the film, the audience would be laughing because they could tell that, they couldn't understand. And then there's a scene when she stops to talk to the first guy who doesn't get in the car, one of the early ones that she stops for. He doesn't get in the car, but she's asking for directions, and the audience is laughing. They can't understand him. And then Scarlett starts to repeat some of what he's saying in her proper British English. And I had a feeling she was doing it so that the audience would understand, because she's kind of providing the subtitles, and it was funny.
The casting of Scarlett Johansson, one of the things that surprised me on reading the book was how young she is, because she's difficult to sort of get where she is age-wise, because of course she was a child actress. We'd seen her already in Ghost World. We'd seen her already in The Man Who Wasn't There. Lost in Translation is before this as well, but she's still quite young. So it's like she's been around for a while, but at the same time, she's still very young when she makes this.
She's still young. I mean, when Sofia Coppola cast her in Lost in Translation, she was 19, and people told the director, she's too young, for this. And they said, no, Sofia said that she's perfect. And she goes up against, she has in several films been cast opposite veteran male actors, Bill Murray, John Travolta, and in Girl with a Pearl Earring also. She holds her own. She holds her own, playing opposite these really strong actors, because there's something really deep and timeless about her. She conveys something deep, and I know that's part of why Glazer cast her. And because that also, it transcends not just her age, but she can play an alien. She can play, there are other levels to her, other dimensions, and great casting,
One of the things what's brilliant about the book as well is you have this really detailed, scene by scene, shot by shot analysis, if you like. Analysis makes it sound too dry, but a sort of description of your viewing of the film, basically.
Yeah.
Well, what made you take that approach? I mean, I think that's a great way of doing it, but what was your sort of thinking?
Analysis, I agree with you. It's kind of a dry word that doesn't capture it. I usually think of it as, I think of it as a tour of the film, because I go from scene by scene. And I think that as I embarked on this, what was most compelling for me, and what drove me, was the emotion I had over the film. And that's why this was the easiest way for me this was the portal I found, just to give a tour of the film, talk about what I experienced watching each scene from scene to scene. And then later on in the book, I go through the making of those scenes. And so it was nice to first do the emotional part and then do the nuts and bolts part. Here's where they use the practical effects. Here's where they use the special effects, etc. So
I think it allows you to sort of, there are so many parts of the film which I'm familiar with, but by doing that close watching, like I keep wanting to say close reading, as you would say in sort of literature.
What it is. It is the same. It is that. Yeah, close reading.
You have this situation where, like, for instance, where you refer to the mirrors and how, in fact, that's one of the titles, that's the subtitle of your book, The Alien in the Mirror.
It's actually the title.
You refer to the mirror as potentially sort of like a communication device, that maybe they're not looking in the mirror, or maybe because that makes much more sense in a way. Why, looking at a mirror just to see your reflection is a very human thing. Whereas for the alien to be looking in the mirror, it could be doing it for a totally different function.
Oh, gosh. It occurred to me when I was watching the film, because she seems to be looking for something in that mirror, not just her own reflection. And she seems to be getting something back from it. And then after that intense scene, just before she flees her mission, and then later her colleague looks in that same mirror and is searching it. And I feel like he's getting information too from that mirror, perhaps about her whereabouts. I don't know. It's just an idea, but that mirror was more than a mirror, I feel. So, yeah. And then there's so many mirrors, her rear view mirror, her compact mirror. There's a scene where she regards her body in the mirror later on, her whole body, and she's looking at it. And the editor, Paul Watts, he said, I love that shot because she's gazing at the thing she's traveling in. And it's true. I mean, she wore the body. It's like a suit and for that character. And it's like, what is this? And how do I look? And I guess this is why all these men are looking at me, but why? And so on. And it's a beautiful moment. So, and other mirrors as well. They're all through it. The film, and it's sort of like it's a kind of motif that runs through it, and just as the sort of eye in Blade Runner, it's the mirror in Under the Skin. That's right. I like that. That's my favorite film, by the way.
Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Well, it's definitely up there. It's definitely in the top one. Yeah, absolutely. It took a while for Glazer to actually, I mean, as you would imagine, if you're only going to make a film once every 10 years, you want to choose the right film to devote that amount of time to. So it took a while for him to sort of find the story and find the script and put it all together, right?
Yes, that took years. Because he had a couple of other scripts before he ended up working with Walter Campbell. And the first one was very close to the book. And it was a good script. But Glazer said, I want to make a film about the book, but I don't want to film the book. And so that distinction was critical for him. And then he moved on to another script and then finally another one. But if you read the Michel Faber book, it is so different from the movie. And I love the book, but there's an entire storyline in the book that's not in the film at all. So I urge everybody to read the book, because then you get both. You get her story, which is in the movie, but you also get this other story about these aliens, which is quite fascinating. And it's very dramatic and intense. And it's also very cinematic. But to have done that and do the story of the woman, which is what he did, would have almost been too much. And he did eventually arrive at focusing on her journey, and that's it. And part of that was necessary financially, because the first budget they did after the first idea he had was closer to the book, and it was a $40 million, I'm saying dollars, but whatever that is, and they could not raise it. And it was his Channel 4, the Film 4 producer. Now, I can't think of her name at the moment, but it'll come to me. She worked on Zone of Interest too. They sat down and she said to him, this was some snowy night in her home. They were talking about it. This was when they couldn't raise the money initially. She said, is it possible that you could reframe the story and go back in and do it for maybe half that budget? And that was when he cut out that whole other story about the alien. Even so, it wasn't everything that's in the book. It was just some. But he then brought it down to, this is just about her and her experience on Earth. And then they got it down to I think, a $14 million budget. And then they were able to get the finance. I'm going crazy because I can't remember her name, but it's in the book. She's one of the producers on Zone of Interest, too. Her company's called House. And I quoted her in the book a few times, but
I mean, that process of sort of narrowing it down, and I love this idea. Yes. I mean, I read the book before I saw the film, and so yes. I was kind of sitting there thinking, okay, this will be interesting how he does this. But I'm so glad he did it the way he did it, because as you say, there's nothing, far from there being nothing wrong with the book. The book is great, but it's a different animal. It's more a sort of horror story, yes. And it's more allegorical and in science. It's more straightforward science fiction wise as a genre, whereas this is a really pared down. As you say, there's barely anything science fiction in it at all. The black room with the floor and everything could just as easily be almost fantasy. It's not technological. It's not apparently yes. technological. I had a friend of mine who we were arguing about the film after the screening in Venice, and he said, good. This could be, his point was, this could be a gangster movie. This could be an Eastern European prostitution ring in which the guys on the motorcycle were just luring people back to the house to kill them for money. And she's the honey trap, and that's he wasn't necessarily arguing it wasn't a bad film or anything like that, but he was sort of like, but where's the science fiction if it's this and if it's that, but I just thought it was that bare bones format was absolutely perfect, and I kind of like genres where it reinvents what is possible to do in that genre.
Which is what he does always. And I like your friend's idea. I think that's an interesting take on that film. And I think that's another reason why the film didn't get a big audience. People went into it and then said, where's the science fiction? So if you have the potential audience for this film, which is the science fiction audience, which is enormous, and then you have these Scarlett Johansson audience, which is also enormous, and yet the film did not do well. So I think both of those audiences were disappointed, and then through word of mouth, they got, well, this isn't the kind of science fiction film we want to see, and this isn't a Scarlett Johansson film we want to see, so we're not going to go. And so it created a marketing problem also and everything else. But I like what you said about how the book is a different animal from the film, because the animal theme in the book is part of what I really liked about it. And it is allegorical, and it is, I know in Michel Faber, in some interviews he did when he wrote the book, he said, I know people think this is some kind of vegan manifesto because it's taking how we raise cattle and using how they raise humans and using that as an allegory. And it's so horrific, as you said. It's a horror film in that book, but it's a powerful allegory, and it's pretty hard to pick up a hamburger after you read that book. And but I agree with you. He took all of that allegory, he took all of that out. And initially, he never really went into that very much. And then later he took more out in terms of, there was a time when he had some of those aliens and their lives, an alien couple living on a farm. He had them in the script. All that went. And he did say, film is going to be just about her. We're going to follow her around Glasgow, and that's the film, and it's only going to cost X. And he was right. And it gave him in the end, it gave him a great film. So it was the right choice. And this is what they've said about a lot of films. Sometimes those budget restrictions are how you end up with something great. One of my favorites.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Science fiction films is Primer. I don't know if you ever watched Shane Carruth. Yes, exactly. And he had just a tiny amount of money. I think he made it for $7,000 or something. And boy, so he was forced to do what he had to do. And that film just sings. So, sometimes it's good to cut back.
Absolutely. I think sometimes it's a danger with some directors that they get that everybody wants to get that big budget so they can tell a bigger story. And then they get a little bit stuck that if they can't have that big budget, then they can't tell a story. And it's like, well, why can't you used to be able to? Why can't you go back to that, or go back and forth? Francis Ford Coppola is coming out with Megalopolis in the next couple of weeks. He did do that to some degree. He did make Apocalypse Now, but he did also make Rumblefish. He went from big to small and back again sometimes. And the second part of the book, you go into the minutiae of how they made the film, and I think that this film really justifies that making of, because the way they made the film was so consonant with the themes of the film, with ideas of observation, with ideas of technology, and it almost became part of the story, the way people are being observed and everything. So I loved all that material. I thought it was really original and interesting to have that come out.
I'm so glad you enjoyed that. It was so exciting to do those interviews, to talk to, did the special effects, the other things that were going on, that suit that they designed, that suit so that he could go underwater and he could still breathe. So that's
like the flesh suit that they could wear.
Yes. He puts on this skin suit that's all wired with tubes so he could breathe while he was underwater, because there's that magnificent scene of the two of them under that, we call it water, but whatever it was. And they're looking at each other, they're seeing each other through that murk, and they had to be able to breathe. So the way they combined, once again, the practical effects of things like designing suits with some special effects, which they did use, which were from those companies, One of Us, and there's another visual effects company, who also worked on Zone of Interest. I think Glazer is very loyal. He brings people from one picture to another.
Yeah, that's what I got. He sort of has a crew that he sticks with.
And certainly his producer, Jim Wilson, and his editor, Paul Watts. And these people, as I said, they go back to his other work as well. And yes, the nuts and bolts of making that film are fascinating. And I'm glad you enjoyed that part. And it's also that it was that, but at the same time, it was like this. It's this most sophisticated, stuff, and at the same time, it's guerrilla filmmaking. They're driving around. They're in the back of a van. They got the cameras in the back of the van, and she's driving around Glasgow. She was quite a wild driver, as I talk about in the book. And they were going, oh no, like this in the back seat. But it's almost like cinema verite, where going around those streets. There's people in the street. She turns to avoid them. There's people coming out from the football stadium, and it was documentary-like in some places. So you have that, and you also have the effects, and yet he manages to put it all together, and it's seamless. All the different aspects of filmmaking, that you see in this, and it all kind of works together. None of it jumps out or anything.
I mean, that's also interesting in terms of when we're talking about budget, because that scene where they come out and the football fans are coming out of the stadium, you have a scene that is so cinematic because you literally got a cast of hundreds, thousands walking around the van, and it's brilliant, and you're getting it for free. You're getting it as Roberto Rossellini did in 1945 with Roma Città Aperta. It's Italian neorealism. Let's just get the camera out there and film what's outside,
That's right. That scene reminded me of that Italian neorealism, and because those people are pouring out, they're pouring onto the street. It's shot in a certain way, and that was timed, by the way, to, they looked up the schedule for the team, and that was timed so they would be driving down that street, and they would get this influx of people, as you said, all these extras, and I had fun looking at. Thank heaven we have this Google Earth thing. I looked at all those neighborhoods when I was researching the book where the streets where she drove. And it's so much fun to see those bars and shops and things in the background exactly as she drives past them. And it's got such a sense of place.
And then you think about it of being an alien. I mean, and you have a situation in which you have a completely communal experience. There's this massive community outside there, which is this football crowd who have just experienced a communal, and this must be the most alien thing to you, the most alienating thing to you, because you're there alone. You don't know what football is. You don't know what these people do and it's just, I just think that scene's remarkable. And then later on, we have sort of scenes of like Scotland at its most naturally brutal, sort of the Scotland of the waves and the beach and then the forest and the snow. That scene, one of the scenes which I think most people find the most striking and terrifying, is the scene, of course, with a swimmer and the couple and the baby. Wow. That's kind of almost it really tests how far you're willing to go with this protagonist.
It does. And that's the one where she does become, I think I even called the chapter monster in the book, because you experience her as a science fiction monster in that scene. And they looked at the location manager, that's Eugene Strange, looked at beaches all over, and they had originally looked in the eastern part of the country, but it was on the west coast that he found Auchmithie, which was that beach, which is so perfect because it's got those jagged cliffs, which are like these big teeth almost. They're so menacing. And then this cove where all this bloodbath occurs with these hills in the background. It's so frightening. And it's in that scene, we experience her in that way. And yet the beauty is that later we experience her in another way. Like midway through the film, when she leaves her mission, this is another thing that so attracted me to the film from the beginning. She is leaving everything familiar. I mean, she's there. She's like a soldier. She's on a mission. She's a soldier. She's sent to this foreign planet. She doesn't know anything about this race of people. And she is now leaving behind her partner, who's her overseer, and a group of overseers. She's leaving that van, which it was protecting her physically and psychologically. And she's basically jumping off a cliff into a world that she knows almost nothing about. And when I saw the film the first time, I thought, this is extraordinary. This is the bravest creature I've ever seen in film ever. She doesn't know what she's stepping into, but it showed you her character. She was this monstrous soldier, whatever you want to call her, but she was brave, and she knew she didn't want to do that anymore. And then she now steps off this ledge to go into the unknown to find out who she is. And I think that's a big thing. That's a big part of why I went back to the movie over and over. That's what it was, that just personal thing about this character, which he conveyed, which I say also she conveyed so beautifully in the film.
I found it really fascinating as well in terms of the sexual politics, because obviously it's very difficult to talk about let's have a feminist viewing of the film, because is she a woman? How can you gender her?
You can't.
You can't gender her, I agree, definitely.
Yeah.
But the way she is gendered by other people can be criticized. Yes. So when we find the misogynistic monster, when we find the way the bus driver is protective of her, which all these points you bring up, of course, there's a sense that her negotiating her new reality is as a woman in very much inverted commas, because she's just reflecting. She's another mirror. She's reflecting what people are expecting of a woman, or what are you doing here? Are you okay, love? Is there something wrong? I actually started to think on rewatching it recently after reading your book, there's a strange parallel with the new Barbie, in that she is a woman without genitalia. She is a very sexualized woman, and she doesn't have, it's the spoiler, the end of Barbie is about getting your, just as the scarecrow gets a heart, and at the end of the Wizard of Oz, Barbie gets a vagina. So it's it's Scarlett Johansson as the alien here. That's her sort of tragedy, is that she's beginning to learn what being a woman might be, but without the physical reality of it.
Yes, true. And that's a funny comparison of Barbie. You could write an interesting essay about those two films, actually. No. Kind of go together.
Or a tweet. I don't think an essay, probably.
I think it's good for a tweet.
Yeah.
And I like what you said about her. Another riff on the mirror thing is that she is a mirror for people around her. And then from that, she learns about our culture, because she's wearing a woman's suit. She's not that. But then when it's ripped and it comes down and we look at the alien, and the alien doesn't appear to have a gender. So then she's not only pretending, we don't know if there's gender on her planet even. We don't know anything. So she's pretending, not only she has to live as a human and then also as a female, not knowing what either of those things is. And that is such a poignant moment when she pulls down that suit, and then we see a being, and it's almost like I want the sequel. It's like I want to know who this is really. But of course, we do know who that is really, because we saw what she did in the second half of the film. So the first half is the script she's following as a soldier, but the second half is her. So we do know her heart.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, isn't it? That all we see to begin with is a performance, and then when the performance is no longer there, yeah, precisely.
That's right. And then it's the being. The being is now on an adventure on her own.
And it's playing so much with Scarlett Johansson's sort of celebrity as well, because
gosh.
Unrecognizable.
Yes, it really is.
When you see that scene where she falls down in the street, I always find the most disconcerting, just because you don't see Hollywood actresses fall down in streets unless it's some sort of crazy sort of bridesmaid style comedy where it's done for yucks. Just that idea of somebody tripping up in the street is so sort of vulnerable and strange, and it's the reactions of the people around her. And
terrific scene, and they had rehearsed it in London in some neighborhood initially, and it was disconcerting because nobody stopped to help her, and they thought, oh my God, if with all these people in London nobody's stopping, what's going to happen when we did in Glasgow? But it worked out, and people stopped, and they got what they wanted. But it's hilarious.
And so we get a sort of fairy tale, and you know, as you were saying with the genres, it just so much. There's a like fairy tale in here. There's a rose with some blood. There's a forest. There's snow. There's fire. It's all, you know. I mean, when I watch the trailer of this film, it's like watching a trailer for an Angela Carter short story. You know, it feels so out there. There's something so uncanny about it. You know.
That's the word. That's the word. Yeah, and it's uncanny. It's got it all. Uncanny. I like the fairy tale aspect of it that you mentioned. And then the poetry of some of the shots. I mean, that scene where she's handed the rose by a stranger in another car, and then she looks at the rose, doesn't know what it is, I assume, and then she's handled it. So now there's blood on her hands because of the thorns, and she's looking at it. And it's like... and of course, I can't resist this blood on her hands thing because she's there killing people. But it's a beautiful moment. And then you talked about a lot of the imagery in the film, and there's a lot of red, and there's a lot of just beautiful poetic moments. And that scene when she's in the kitchen, when she's in her new life now as a new person, and the guy who brought her home is tapping his foot to the music as he's listening to the song on the radio, and she starts to tap her fingers on the table, and we see this human-like response, or her getting something from him. That Deacon Blue song, I love that scene. I love that scene, and this is in there too. So it's amazing how many kinds of moments and filmmaking there are in this beautiful Under the Skin.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Let's talk a little bit as well about Zone of Interest, because I think there's everybody hopefully has had an opportunity to see it. I watched it. I was very fortunate enough to watch it at Cannes last year during the premiere, and it was for me the best film of last year by maybe the best film for several years by a country mile. It's very funny when you see a film in a film festival. You want to go outside and you want to talk about it, and and usually you can gauge how good the film is by the amount of discussion there is and how lively everybody is. And then every now and again, there's another almost a different type of film altogether where you come out and you kind of just want to go home. You want to digest it. You don't want to reduce it with discussion. And Zone of Interest was that for me. It was the film I didn't want to argue about. I didn't want to speculate about its Oscar chances. I didn't want it to be in an Oscar race. It just felt... I'm glad it won the recognition it won. I'm glad that more people will see it because of that. Mm-hmm. But it just was a different quality of art that it doesn't need that sort of stuff.
I like what you said about you don't want to reduce it, by talking about it, because you are it is reductive to have some conversation just moments after seeing it. And, the film, it's Jonathan Glazer. It reminds me so much of Under the Skin, more than reminding me of Birth or Sexy Beast, because in both films, he withholds much more than what he discloses. And you're the one that really needs to bring something to the table and listen very carefully and look very carefully and figure out what's going on. And he's not interested in spoon feeding anybody. And this is what I love about his movies, but not everybody likes that. Not everybody likes that. And they'll walk away from the film and say, what just happened, or they didn't know what was going on, or it's confusing, or it wasn't what they expected. And you're not going to get what you expect from his films ever. And he's not going to explain. So, but for me, he gives me what I need to immerse in the film emotionally. And what he did with Zone of Interest and the Johnny Byrne, who won the award also for sound, talks about how it's two films. And this was Glazer's idea. the two of them, that it's the film you hear and the film you see. So the film you see is the family and their lives next to this camp. But the film you hear is what's going on in the camp. And it upsets me when people say, where are the victims? You didn't show didn't you listen? It's like they're pervasive. They're ubiquitous in the film. It's heartbreaking. Every single sound is the suffering that's going on over the fence from this family. And so it's all there. But, it isn't like any other Holocaust film, so people have their criticisms of it. But I feel that he did what he's brilliant at, which is it's an art film, and he grips you emotionally through here, visuals and sound. Under the Skin, it's that Michael Levy's score that is throughout, that is just, as you know, but also Micah's score in the end of Zone of Interest is so stunning and powerful that it's as if there's not much score before that point. It's mostly sounds, but it's as if the score was withheld so that all the emotions building in the film could suddenly, like a tsunami, come out. And I'm in the theater listening to that score, and I thought, oh God, Micah did it again. I mean, it's like, oh, and it's all there. And all those sounds that you were hearing from the camp through the whole film, now you're hearing the screams. Now you're hearing the screams of the people you didn't see, or I don't know. So for me, it's all there. It's all complete. It couldn't be more complete. And so if I see a review, I won't name any names, but if I see certain reviews where they say, oh, we didn't get it. We didn't get that there was enough of, I don't know. It's hard to see that. But people are on different radars when they watch films. They look for different things. It's fine, but I think it's all there.
I agree. I totally agree. And I also think that, I had one moment where I was thinking, I was kind of halfway through my viewing experience and then my very first viewing, and I was thinking, this is almost too good, in the sense that, can we use the Holocaust as an opportunity to show how good I am at making a film? And there was a moment that I was disturbed by that. I was thinking, this is almost too good. As look at me, I'm making the best Holocaust film in this really austere, interesting, intelligent way. And then the scene, and so we're going to spoil the Zone of Interest, I'm afraid, the scene where they went to Auschwitz in the modern day, yes. Suddenly that, for me, answered that criticism. It said, I know. This is where it actually happened. Everything you've just seen is a fictional recreation, is seen through art, and this is what remains today. So really, if you want to see it, here it is. And seeing the women cleaning it, it was like, those women are doing jobs which are just as important as me making this film, because all we can do is clean the screen in front of what remains of history. And that just moved me so much that an artist would have, frankly, the humility, but rightfully have that humility, justifiably have that in front of the enormity of his own subject. And it's just like, you got me. That's it. I have nothing more to say. I want to go home and think about this.
I love what you just said. That really does answer the question about, here's my film, and here is the reality of what the film is about. And I think it does that. And it does that. It succeeds, as you said. It succeeds at that. And there's always going to be the issue of, when something is so extraordinarily horrible as the Holocaust, then you make a film about it, there's going to be that question. It's like, well, what are you doing? Showcasing your filmmaking ability. But you're right, that last sequence really does respond to that. And I feel that the film is so respectful also that it really should answer, and it is humble too, like you said. It should answer those criticisms pretty well. It does for me anyway.
Yeah, certainly. And I watched it this weekend, and I was thinking, this family are kind of likable, there's the birthday present and the this and the that, and she's the gardens, and if you take away and you only glimpse the horror. I remember somebody as well saying to me, why don't you see any Jewish people in the film? And I was like, well, you do. You see them, they're actually working there as well as hear them. You see them working there. They were like, no, they're different categories of prisoner, they're different. And I was like, no, they're not. Because the mother says, as she walks out, you have Jews in the house? And so the girl, who is the most put upon domestic servant, she turns around to her and says, I'll have my husband spread your ashes on the field if you upset me again. And so it's, the people are there. The fact that some people can't see them is not the film's problem. It's the invisibility that those people had via the regime, but they're there. They're on the screen.
Yeah, and I like that idea about their invisibility. And I mean, there are people in the house, but when you use the word invisibility, I realize that the part of that is that the Jews were it was desirable for them. They wanted them to be invisible. They wanted to wipe them out. So they're non-entities in that perspective, the way they're viewed by the whole Nazi mentality. So that's another thing that makes me feel that Glazer very aggressively makes that point with all the sound by saying, well, you want them to be gone. You want to wipe them out from the earth. But I'm going to put them in your face with their cries and their, and so it's powerful. And what you were saying about the family, they're almost likable, etc. That was important because these aren't monstrous creatures from outer space. They're human beings that did this. So we need to look at that human beings were capable of this. And then at the same time, they have what interested me, John, is he has a scene with Haas's character before he's sent away before he's relocated, where he goes to say goodbye to his horse. And it is very moving scene. And he says, I love you, to his horse. And it's like any human being who's attached to an animal who feels love and can love. It's a beautiful scene. And there's no equivalent scene for his wife, Hedwig, where we glimpse something like that. And that's there for a reason. And I think it's because this is a human being who is responsible for this and is accountable and was later executed and so on. But let's not make a mistake. These are human beings who did this. So I wondered why he didn't have a moment like that for the Hedwig, but I feel it was quite deliberate. Instead, we have her horrifically, putting on lipstick from a prisoner and things like that. So, he kind of goes the other way with her.
I know. But I mean, her relationship with her mom is so, they're so pleased to see each other, and they're so, these two drawers will be yours, and it's just so normal. Yes. And, there's
yes, normal, exactly.
Normal monstrosity or monstrous normality. I'm not sure which is worse. And I think I know the speech was controversial. I didn't find it at all controversial, to tell you the truth, that he gave at the Oscars. I think that normality is about showing us that this could happen today, and now is happening today. So
that's right.
The same normalizing of inhumanity.
That's right. this could happen, this can happen, this is happening. I mean, I think that's part of the reason people make films about the Holocaust, to keep reminding people and to make people look around. But it's this speech, I think, was misinterpreted, but that's.
I would have just changed a little bit of the syntax. I mean, I think there was a slight problem with syntax.
Yes.
But I think apart from that, there was a lot of willful misinterpretation. It allowed an opening for a lot of people to willfully misinterpret what was clearly meant to be said. He was not refuting his Jewishness; he was refuting the use of his Jewishness to justify, and the use of the Holocaust to justify inhumane, terrible acts. Maureen, one last question. I could do this for hours because there's so many things we could talk about with Jonathan Glazer's work. But one last question is, I would like you to recommend a film book for us, for our listeners, because we always try to send people off with an idea of another book to read.
Oh boy, only one?
Nobody ever chooses one. Nobody ever chooses one.
I'm right by my bookshelf. I'm just going to grab them.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see. For Antonioni fans, or for cinema in general, just all cinema. I happen to love Antonioni, but the appreciation of this filmmaker's work. So it's Seymour Chatham, Antonioni, or The Surface of the World. A deep and detailed appreciation of his work, and especially for people who maybe don't get Antonioni or don't think they like him, or I don't know. I loved it.
Brilliant.
Absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Let me think if I want to go on. I don't know. This is another wonderful movie. It's an older book, but closely watched films by Marilyn Fabe.
Oh, wonderful!
Was a teacher many years at UC Berkeley.
Right.
In fact, she's one of the two people who started the film department at UC Berkeley in the 70s. It's about a lot of different movies that are some old, some more recent, but just really good analysis. Also, she was a wonderful professor. So, very good, very accessible. Excellent. Writing about movies. Yeah.
Oh,
what's
brilliant.
Your favorite book about? What are some of your favorite books about films?
Oh man, I've done over 150 episodes. I would offend too many people if I say. I don't know. I very much have enjoyed Roger Lewis's biographies, but he's been my last guest, so that's because it's very fresh in my mind.
I may have to go back and watch all your podcasts then to get your book. Book referrals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I'll be happy to do it.
There are plenty in there.
Thank you so much. This was such a pleasure.
If there's one thing that my family and friends know me for, it's being an amazing gift giver. I owe it all to Celebrations Passport from 1-800-Flowers.com, my one-stop shopping site that has amazing gifts for every occasion. With Celebrations Passport, I get free shipping on thousands of amazing gifts. And the more gifts I give, the more perks and rewards I earn. To learn more and take your gift giving to the next level, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.